the MP for Kalungu West, Honorable Joseph Sewungu. Welcome to the program. Good morning. How are you doing? I'm okay. How are you, Mr. Moderator? Great. Thank you for always remembering me. So at least I appear on MorningAtNTV. Interesting there. We are always honored to be able to talk about the issues that concerned the Ugandans, and whenever you find yourself in that space, no doubt we shall be able to cover that. Many thanks for making it to retired Major Paula Awich, Director, External Affairs, National Resistance Movement. You're most welcome. Thank you. Honorable, allow me begin with the Director at the National Resistance Movement in charge of External Affairs. Pretty much your very first time on MorningAtNTV. Take us through what your designation is as a Director, External Affairs of the National Resistance Movement. Does this speak of the fact that NRM has great reach outside of the country to warrant to have a de facto ambassador?
Well, maybe you'd even put it to have a de facto Minister of Foreign Affairs. Yeah, because somebody would say you have a parallel executive running the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and you have a parallel director in the ruling party running Foreign Affairs Ministry. So that's why I say you'd even be safer by saying having a de facto Minister of Foreign Affairs than an ambassador. Because ideally an ambassador sits outside Uganda, but I'm inside the country. So it is not very equivalent to compare me with somebody outside. Okay. So, but just to say that one of the core principles of NRM is Pan-Africanism. And that already starts by saying we attach so much importance about what happens outside our jurisdiction. So as a party, we therefore need to trace that directly. And this now brings us into close cooperation with our revolutionary progressive parties around the continent. We have ANC, CCM, we have parties in Kenya, Mozambique, Rwanda. So that falls among the many mandates of Director External Affairs. And I can confidently tell you that during my stay in office, I have built all the good relationship with all the ruling parties in the ring states except Congo. I'm not able to reach out to the Congolese, but with South Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, we are perfectly well as ruling parties, because the parties are the ones which reach to the people. So in the bid to do this, we think that we are uniting people-to-people unity. But of course, the parties are the ones which shape policies to give to the executive. So we feel it is important. And therefore goes to continental. But also globally, the role of External Affairs is to link the party with other progressive parties around the country. I mean around the world. Around the world. Not the country. No, I was just coming to the fact that your work should be anchored on linking around the world, the rest of the parties in the country. But also, we have come across scenarios where when our political actors here, like their party, when they go and explain their positions abroad, like to the Senate or to House of Commons, House of Lords around the world, we find it difficult for government ambassadors to counter that narrative. And you have seen a recent incident where our ambassador was chased from Canada because he was trying to explain party position. So therefore, Directorate of External Affairs says that since our brothers and sisters here who went in their political capacity, then it is duty bound that we do it as a party. And to this effect, we have made presentations to the European Union Parliament, we have made presentations to the House of Commons, House of Lords, to the Senate, and many other things. So I could go on and on, but that is briefly the mandate of Directorate of External Affairs. Interesting there. Allow me ask, Honorable, do you find that designation alien, or it's perfectly okay, especially
it's alien. You see, you know, Museveni is a system. He does not believe in the full retirement of people he fears, most especially soldiers. He must fix them somewhere. And you've heard of recent, he's about to close 25 embassies. So my council, when we attended the LDC together, he's a retired soldier, and now you see he's the de facto minister. in essence, that's what he's saying actually, because he has stated he can't be a de facto ambassador. Since he's not domiciled there, a particular country. But you see, what this man is doing, he doesn't want to see these soldiers out. He fears them. Anytime they can cause an overthrow against him, these ones, the colonel of a retired. So he gave him that appointment to keep him busy there. Which countries does he coordinate? God knows. Where does he report after spending taxpayers' money? All that is his and the appointing authority. But for me, I would feel Uganda would be having leaders, former soldiers, the way Tanzania behaves, as he has talked that he condemns all those countries. When you go to Tanzania, those retired soldiers are given full package retirement, and they go home and do other things. After getting, they build for them very good houses, good remuneration for their retirement, and they go because they have served. So the challenge in Uganda, they must get where to stay. That's why you have put all soldiers everywhere. Our children we have educated in engineering cannot get contracts from government to start to build the hospitals or schools. It is the UPDF to do everything. So they are doing it. They are doing more than one job at one time. So he is a lucky man, my good friend here. He's appointed somewhere. But of course, what do we get out of it? Do we learn anything from those countries where he's serving, or where he has appointed as a... What do we learn exactly?
A great perspective, and happy.
And if after learning, what do we implement with the government?
The reason I dwelt on that doesn't, I'm not here to bring the good retired major on the spot, but it's because of the thin line between NRM and the state and the conduct of external duties.
You see,
but he has explained it perfectly well.
It's very okay, but what I was saying, you cannot market a party outside your country in the name of NRM when there's a country called Uganda. It's not. I
think it's possible. It's perfectly fine. All right, let's get to the nitty-gritty of this particular conversation, and I'll ask retired Major Paula Awich, what is your bird's eye view of the country right about now, as the various political parties begin to jostle for space ahead of the much anticipated 2026 general election?
What is
your bird's eye view?
Well, my bird's eye view about the status quo now is that all infrastructural and superstructural situation is set for the country, because NRM, as a government is in power, is obligated to implement constitutional provisions. And one of the constitutional provisions is that a regular election every 5 years. And therefore it is incumbent on the government to do that. For example, to make independent bodies like Electoral Commission have resources, to make, that is financial resources and other logistics, to make independent bodies like Electoral Commission have legislative laws that is available at their disposal for use. So much as Electoral Commission is independent, but the government, the executive, has that role to avail it both human resources, human resources through financing, but the laws available to them, and the money, and all this situation available. Now, also, what is available is the peace, because you cannot have these elections in a situation of war or instability. That is incumbent on the government. We also believe that all actors are prepared because they know the background, they know their internal organizations, and therefore we expect everybody to be doing what they do, including us. For us as a party, we have gone through party registration, we are now going to have structural elections and doing all that. So my bird's eye view is that we as a ruling party, and through extension by the government we set in place, we are set to ensure that Uganda undergoes a regular and fair election. And we're so committed to it because we believe that Article 1 gives power to the people and you can't move away from it. Remember, during Corona, some voices, some sentiments came saying it was possible for President Museveni to avoid election because of Corona. But true to it that NRM and through its leader, President Museveni, stuck to the gun and said, no, we can't do away with power to the people. Even if there's Corona, let's do everything to have election. So the bird's eye view is that the country is set, and it is incumbent upon us as a government, a party in power and government, to ensure that situations are set, both on the ground, finance, logistics, laws in place are set for the country to move on.
Honorable, I will find time so that you recall for a submission, but allow me to stay for a minute with retired Major Paula Awich on the continued disappearances of political activists of the different parties that are not national resistance movement. When you look at what appears to be a strategic pattern by the state in order to either confine these activists or to make their ability to converse for support or do their civic duty, does it bother you as a member of the national resistance movement that these disappearances continue unabated?
Of course, disappearance bothers me. But I thought that now that you called us here, with my land friend and brother, that we discuss this animal called enforced disappearance in a more cognitive way than as activists. Because if we discuss it well, you will find that maybe even some actors who are involved don't know. So it is only through this forum that if we put it well, maybe some actor who would be doing it will learn and say, oh, I didn't know this animal called enforced disappearance. And therefore, you will allow me to go slowly to do it so that both alleged perpetuators and alleged victims really get what it is and they do it, because some people may be ignorant. Therefore, just to answer your question how I feel, I definitely would feel bad about any disappearance. But let us know that enforced disappearance takes a global concept. There's an international convention on enforced disappearance. It aims to prevent it. Now, this convention, Uganda has just signed it and not ratified it. The implication here is that if you ratify, if a country ratify like Malawi, if Malawi or Zambia ratifies, you have the obligation to pass a law criminalizing enforcement. I mean, disappeared enforcement. Because right now, you know that
enforced disappeared.
Yes, you know that a crime needs a particular provision with a penalty. Okay? It wants to be, if it doesn't have such a provision, then it becomes a civil right claims. You claim as your right is violated. But so we have not as a country ratified this, and I think it would be better to discuss it at the ratification. However, the spirit is not lost, because the spirit of that convention is carried in Section 11 of the Human Rights Enforcement Act. That Section 11 of Human Rights Enforcement Act mentions things that if you do constitute an offense. Now, which is carried in the convention. So enforced disappearance itself is actually taken, if we have to do the literal definition, it is considered to be the arrest, the detention, the abduction, or any form of deprivation of liberty by agents of the state or by persons or groups of persons acting with the authorities or support or acquaintance of the state, followed by a refusal to acknowledge the deprivation of liberty or concealment of the fact or the whereabouts of the disappeared person, which place such a person outside the protection of the law. So you can see that here in what we are talking about, the three ingredients is deprivation of liberty against the will of the person, then the involvement of government officials, and then refusal to acknowledge that you actually have that person. That is a disappearance. Therefore, if these actions are taking place, that would amount to disappearance. And that would be bad in any country, whether it is in Brazil or it is in Uganda or anywhere. Now, this now brings me to the issue of the fact itself or the allegation. Is it true or is it not true? Now, their party brought a list of people that they are disappearing. And the Minister of Internal Affairs brought 176, I think, list of persons, which government admitted they are in their custody. Now, you know from the definition that any admission that we have, or knowing that they are in this detention, there is this detention, it disqualifies it from enforced disappearance. The challenge that government was having was that the alleged persons could not be verified whether or not they existed, because government tried through the display thing in Kololo, NERA. They fight to check through the boundaries of exit, as say Okello David. Is there anybody Okello David that existed? No. Is there such a name? So there was a discrepancy between the list brought and NERA. So it couldn't be ascertained whether or not more people were actually existed. Because what happens is their claimants simply brought the dirt to the door of the government. So and so is missing. You prove. And yet it doesn't work like that. Normally he who alleges has the burden to prove. So if you bring me a list of 1,000 people and you give it to me and say they are lost, how would I? So, but disappearance is something which is contextualized globally, and it should be internal. And that is why I'm saying the spirit is captured in the enforcement of a Human Rights Enforcement Act.
Let's give Honorable the opportunity, first and foremost, to help me fully understand this particular submission. There is a lot of gray areas, especially on account of inability for any one person that is alleging the enforced disappearance of an individual and the acceptance or acknowledgement by the state or operatives working for the state to actually acknowledge that they have some people with them. Does that nullify the fact that human rights that are basic have been denied somebody, or somebody has been victimized? Yeah,
well, and first of all, I want to also create the impression Uganda is not peaceful. That one, Randy Friend should learn this as someone who went to the bush. If you have a president who was moving freely at one time and is closing roads for over 30 minutes so that he can pass without any interference, there is fear. Wherever he's going, he must be guarded prior deployment. So that one is Uganda is not peaceful.
That is standard protocol.
No, it's not standard.
It's a head of state.
Standard. There are prime ministers in other countries who move on bicycles.
Those are other countries.
Yeah, in the country. That's why, because we have to copy what is there. We copied their system of administration, and we must do the same. Okay, but that's for another day.
That's another debate.
For another day.
Yeah.
Okay, Land Friend is giving something very important, enforced disappearance, but orchestrated by state agents. That's where you need to take care, interest in Uganda. First of all, any person in Uganda is under the protection
of the state.
So when you carry out, you see, state disappearance, he goes to international law, but there is also abduction. In Uganda, as we talk now, if I say, who is not a soldier, I'm found with a gun, that means I'm acting atrocious and I'm against the law, and I will be detained. That's why sometime back they have been using their court martial to try these people who have been found with ammunition. So when you come, because him as a lawyer, we studied law and criminal law, how would you cause arrests? I want to start with the neighboring country Kanos talked about from Rwanda. Kagame, who was once a soldier in Uganda, and he never that would be a president, because he went to Rwanda to command the war after the 3 commanders had killed themselves. And indeed, he never became the first president. He left somebody to become a president. But the system he has in his country, if you are to arrest Sewungu Joseph Gonzalez on any issue, whether political, they will have to look for you. Then they appear, take you to the LOC where you come from, local council. They invite your relatives. They call the people nearby the village. They say, we are taking Sewungu Joseph Gonzalez because he has A, B, C, D with a reference number. Then they take you officially to a detention place, which is gazetted. Here we are, we have state operatives picking people along the road with no offense committed. Then they keep them incommunicado. And the question is, who does that? Is that place where you are taking this person gazetted? Yet you know, police would be in control of that. As we talk now, you've heard what the spokesperson of police is saying. He's not aware of a number of our people in national unity platform, specifically. Let me say that. You know what happened to the edits of our president, Eddie Mutwe from Mukono, and other people. You know what is in Masaka? Again, another edits of our president.
We've had reports.
You have reports and you have run stories.
I might not necessarily know.
But you are denying that you don't know their whereabouts. But people who were around are telling you, people who arrested them were plain clothes with guns. So who is inspiring the arrest without trial and not going through the normal procedures? Because as we talk now, this country needs to go for substantive legal legislation on the processes of arresting Ugandans. But now the state is using its machinery to arrest people. Yesterday's story was run on MTV here. You saw what is at the National Unity Platform headquarters. Electoral Commission opened up for us to have the roadmap is already out, that we should go for politicking and building, looking for candidates. So the day we are preparing to get our candidates, the army and the police have closed off our headquarters. So who is behind this? It is the state. What gift can this government, General Museveni, give Uganda other than a peaceful transition, allowing political parties to operate freely? Because what is happening now, as he has told you, state agents are being used to arrest people without trial and keeping them incommunicado. We don't know where they are kept. And at the end of the day, everybody is running to court for the writs of habeas corpus. Habeas corpus. So let him tell us, what were their 10 programs as they went to the bush? What were they? They were accusing Obote of doing the same. I studied from Uganda Preparatory School. I know what was happening at Nsimbi as we were going to Masaka. I know what was happening at Maya. And these are the same things that are happening with the man who has governed, who has ruled this country, because he has not governed, he has ruled for the last 40 years. So all the people being arrested, who are being abducted, they have links with political inclination. And that one alone shows you the challenges this man is facing. Why do you fear a younger political party over 4 years? A younger political party over 4 years. NRM is giving its messages of campaigning, of their campaign. National Platform is also having its own messages. But you are fighting, you are arresting people who have not been seen in any criminal offense, and at the end of the day, you keep them under ungazetted detention facilities based on your interest. Great. They come out when they have been brutalized, and yet you have the Anti-Torture Act, which was also signed by the same head of state.
Allow me suggest that the good retired major will and ought to push those particular questions, especially the political ones, to the NRM political committee.
He has to answer them because he told you his work is what for NRM. Is a foreign minister. According to his appointment, Kano, he is a foreign minister for NRM. So he cannot avoid speaking NRM issues here. And he's retired.
Okay.
You see, once you retire, that's why I cannot
since you're land friends, I know you work pretty well. But also, just throw some light on the scenario where you seem to suggest that there could be an abduction, a kidnapping, an enforced disappearance, and then we, the population, our inability to figure out the difference under which the state is acting, or the framework that allows the state to actually enforce a disappearance, is something that we are grappling with as lay persons. Maybe does that justify the police explicitly stating how they know somebody is missing, or they've heard somebody is missing, but they can't trace where that person could be?
You see, I like to agree with my learned friend on the power of arrest by the state. Well, I'm not going to go into the debate of Olaro Tunu, because Olaro Tunu once went to court debating whether or not the state actually have power of arrest. But that is for another day. That is maybe for legal learning.
The state has.
So, Olaro Tunu has that school of thought. But here, for the purpose of this argument, is that state authorities, like he explained in Rwanda, has powers of arrest. Therefore, it would be prudent for arresting officers to do legitimate arrest. After all, you have all the legitimate provisions to do it.
That is right.
Than this concealed. The danger of this one is that, suppose now some forces, say, came from Rwanda or from Congo or from Somalia, decided to carry arrest on the street. If the community is already used to that kind of arrest, they would actually let something pass, when not knowing they are actually not state officials. And it becomes so clumsy. Isn't it possible? Especially where we have Uganda and Rwanda, or even Congo, with the same people. You across the border, remember in Uganda, under our constitution, we have.
No, don't suggest, and this one I must be very clear, because it could be something that could mislead the audience. Do not suggest that an arrest, the nature of operatives appearing in a drone and taking away a Ugandan, can actually happen without security agencies in Uganda knowing about it.
Come again?
You're suggesting that since we are a common people, there is a possibility that operatives from Rwanda can come into Uganda or Congo and conduct an arrest, but because we are used to these scenarios, we might not question.
What I'm saying is that the law empowers officers of state to arrest, and therefore it is prudent that it is done legitimately. Of course, it is a scenario based, to avoid a scenario where there's where there's confusion. And that's what I'm saying. And therefore, the officers who have the mandate of arrest should judiciously use this provision.
You're confusing the argument when you suggest there is a window of confusion, that you're giving the security forces in Uganda to act or not to act, that they can actually not know and be confused about what is happening.
Let me put this to you. Like opposite this, actually around Christ the King, there was an arrest. Okay? People came.
2018?
Yes, people came and carried the arrest. And they left. Did you know who did the arrest?
Later, 3 days after,
so later,
the UPDF.
So later. So what I'm saying,
they are operating.
That is 3 days later. So what I'm saying, suppose it was wrong people that day near Christ the King. What would you do? Or how would you know? You are conceding that the knowledge, information of who did it came out 3 days later. So this is what I'm saying. The mandate of arrest rests with the arresting officers, with the state apparatus. It is prudent that it is done. That is it. That is it. Instead of the one you are saying, it is done in Christ the King, and it is known 3 days. The beauty here is that
communication is simply given to the public, but knowledge is there as the arrest is going on.
Knowledge to you?
No, within the security apparatus.
Yes,
an arrest is going on.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. The knowledge is there. But I'm saying the passerbys, the communities around, saw it happening. They did not have that information. The information was with the arresting officers. What I'm saying, suppose tomorrow similar happens, where we now know that the arresting officers are aware, and we also sit and watch.
There is too much hypothesis going on in this particular submission, and I'm trying to...
One problem you created, I have seen kind of some good time.
Yeah.
And you know now he's a lawyer, an advocate.
Okay.
And I think he's also a Christian. And he must be feeling the pain of what his government is doing, that's not what took him to the bush. So he has to rotate within to fulfill your...
No. Instead, I'm giving powers to I'm giving powers to arresting officers to arrest openly.
Within the existing framework.
Yes.
Why do you suggest that there should be a window where no one knows what is going on, when the state is actually mandated to know?
Because you have not, for example, in the arrest, you have not told the authorities, like the way it's said. You have not told the LC there. Possibly you have not come with a tag. Okay? So you have not come with a tag. You have not told the LC. And that is why there's that room. And even so, you have not told anybody where you have taken this.
That is an illegality.
Yes, and that is why I'm saying all our arresting officers should exercise their power of arrest legitimately.
And what's happening now?
Legitimately.
But that has been consistently floated.
That's what I'm saying. It is prudent that they should do it. It is prudent that they should exercise their legitimate powers of arrest.
Great. I think that
you remember I started by saying that when we discuss this topic, the actors, the discussion is to enable actors learn. Maybe sometimes they're doing something outside their knowledge. So it is this discussion to tell them that, hey, colleagues, you have power of arrest.
I must be very clear that the information that you are divulging allows the audience and the Ugandan public to understand the illegalities that are going on.
It's not a divulsion.
It doesn't offer the state operatives, or the state for that matter, a new understanding of how the job should be done. They already know. They do it on a daily. Abductions are conducted, and we even report on them.
And who are being abducted?
No. You see, when you say divulging, it's like there's something sacred.
Of course.
We have taken a case study of a public arrest in Christ the King. Is that a secret? Instead, what I am divulging is the power of arrest. They should exercise the power of arrest legitimately, and even take people where they know they want it and tell the people. This is the power of arrest. So there's nothing.
Honorable, as you submit, let me just take us back, and maybe the audience, on that particular incident in 2018. I was an editor at another media house, and my reporter was responsible for capturing that particular video. If that video hadn't been captured the way it was, the state was never going to come out and say who the operatives were. The pressure that that particular video was able to enlist within the 24 hours after that incident is what led the state to come out and say, these are operatives of the Uganda People's Defense Forces, we know them, and we are going to act in this manner in order to bring them to book. What happened over these years, we do not know. Now, shouldn't the public have the right? How many times, for example, Honorable Sewungu, have your activists or members of NUP been told that they are being arrested for a particular reason? Because I know when they return, you guys have an engagement with them and you ask them what happened during that particular scuffle.
Actually, some of them, they are not even... After we have pushed, you remember, we first push hard through Parliament, raising our voices. That's when some of them are given bail. And of course, with the court martial, we managed to get some out of them after a very long time. You know what we did under the Human Rights Commission? Taking their parents, their relatives, their national IDs, their spouses, and everything to prevent that these are the people we are saying that they have disappeared, taken by the state. If you say they are not there, these are their wives, these are their children, these are their relatives, and this is the national ID. that belongs to this particular person. All those you remember. We had almost more than 18 of them. And you remember my leader of opposition, how many times they have displayed a list of such people on the floor of Parliament. But you see, what I like with my land friend, he's speaking the truth somewhere, somehow. He feels the pain. But enforcement and telling the right authority that what we are doing is not proper is where the challenge is. Let me say this. There is no state, even when they arrested Kanukiza Besigye in Kenya, it was not UPDF that went to arrest him. It was the Kenyan security operatives. Then they handed over to Uganda, and which is not proper, because I think by then he would have been taken as a fugitive, if anything. You know how it is done internationally. He the international law. He knows what happens by someone who runs out of his country. Of course, Kanawesi had not gone out. He had gone for something else. But those who arrested him were not UPDF soldiers or Uganda police or any other security operatives that went to Kenya to go and get him back to the country. It is Kenya which arrested and handed over to Uganda. So when you talk about the story of 2018, as you've stated, is correct. The government came out and accepted, because what you brought out as the fourth arm of government showed the truth of who did the arrest. And what we are emphasizing here is, why don't you go through the proper legal processes of arresting somebody? An arrest warrant is a document which you cannot deny if you are shown to it. Let me say, if someone has stolen my asset, my property, or I have somebody who has abused me, any criminal offense, I go to police, I make my statement, they give me, someone knocks my car. Let me give a clear example for those who are viewing. He takes off, they give me a reference number, I say, you go wherever you meet this person, cause arrest. And once I have a reference, I can do anything I want. But the situation in Uganda now is drones, which are state operatives, used by street operatives with guns. People will even know identification documents on them, not even plain clothed. Because an arresting officer should even be in a uniform, even having his name displayed, so that everybody knows that it is John or Peter who arrested Eddie Mutwe. But here you are, now we are in the third day. Our people, the ADC to our president, nobody knows where he is. But the law is very clear. You cannot keep someone incommunicado, and you cannot keep someone in a detention place which is not legalized by government, sanctioned by government.
Great. Honorable, so, let me ask a question right now that is from a layman's point of view. Is there misalignment? Misalignment is a strong word to use, and this question goes to the retired major. The intelligence agencies, the Uganda police, and the Uganda People's Defense Forces, is each working in a silo when it comes to security and intelligence, to the extent that if a Ugandan has been arrested or an enforced disappearance has been conducted by a security agency that is not the police has absolutely no way of even questioning that agency on where the Ugandan who has been arrested is, to the extent that a spokesperson of the force, all he can say is to acknowledge the missing person, but then conduct himself in a manner or speak in a manner that portrays plausible deniability on where anyone Ugandan could be at any one point in time.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I like to address the issue of delayed response or showing the whereabouts of suspects. Sometimes this is met in practical challenges of the state agencies operating. either in the process of arrest, say for example, Hedi Mutwe is arrested today, but before you even close up on that particular matter, there are more other operations coming up, and therefore this one stayed. Those are practical challenges in practicalities. And that is why the Constitution, or even the other law, gave time to the state to say, we know you could have practical challenges, but at least within 48 hours, do whatever it is to make this thing come up, or take him to court, or give a bond. If there's such practical challenge, which sometimes it is, because you remember, General Kale Kayura actually went he was attempting to go to Parliament to say, due to these challenges, he needed extension of time. I think he had proposed 72 or something. So sometimes the delay, the arrest, and the non-disclosure is the practical challenges. The agencies are involved in multiple operations. They have arrested somebody. They are possibly given an officer to handle the file. Now, before he handles the file, the same officer is taken for another operation, and days are going. And yet, to the outside world, it is perceived as disappearance has already occurred. So, my view is that we could still continue to discuss, including the line Kayura discussed, that if there are practical challenges, whether in terms of the lack of manpower to handle files, or the lack of transport or resources there too, these officers should come out clear, so that these resources are even availed to them by the state. So, part of why this thing doesn't come up quickly are those practical challenges. Now, I go to your question of what I've captured as coordination among agencies. Ideally, the agencies we have in the Constitution, Article 219, which provides for National Security Council. So the National Security Council is the supreme body in the country which coordinates all these agencies. And even below, there's an at operational level, there's a coordination among them. But again, the practicalities and the nature of investigation sometimes does not bring them so closely. Remember, in intelligence, there's what is called compartmentalization. Compartmentalization would mean, even when we sit with you, at what point or level must you know what I'm doing here? Until a proportion where I need to share with you. So I can actually be with you without you knowing. So therefore, if you find an agency, a security agency which has carried out arrest, knowing that there's the operational coordination level, you find some status where it is still compartmentalized that the other party doesn't know. Of course, at some point it is shared, because there's a unit, as I said, there's a unit of operational level for all of them before you even go to Article 219. So the circumstances where agents have carried out arrest and a sister agent doesn't know is arising out of that. Sometimes the premature nature of the investigation, which still confines it to the compartmentalization to a particular agency. And that is why the agency has arrested, say for example CMI. CMI has arrested and the police is not yet aware. Why? Because of the infancy, the premature nature of that investigation, which has still kept it compartmentalized in the arresting officer, which is now CMI. But later on, of course, it gets to be known, because the institutional framework at operational level, and even at the Article 219, and even at government level.
You know what you've just done?
You are hell-bent on fishing out something.
You have justified illegality.
What do you mean?
I mean, at the end of the day, you're telling us that Ugandans allow that security operatives are going to arrest you at any one point in time, and then the workings of the whole framework don't allow one to share information with the other, in order for the people who might be anxious, depressed about the disappearance to know.
The sharing information, I'm saying, between the agencies. not the whatever you are saying. It's between the agencies.
Because fundamentally, it's the human rights we are discussing here.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yes.
Now that we have...
your question was, in simple terms, your question was, how does CMI arrest
and police doesn't know?
And I've explained to you that.
You've explained that, and it has brought the conclusion that
the conclusion is in your head.
Yeah.
The conclusion is in your... It is not a conclusion at all.
Honorable, when the CMI or any other operatives, for example, have arrested a Ugandan and the police has no idea, let's just imagine, has no idea where that person is, what the retired major is telling us that is okay. Ugandans should allow, and because the workings within the state allow for that to go
if you disclose the investigation to many people, then how will you investigate?
I want to remind him of something very interesting. You remember when General Kale Kahira was talking about 72 hours before trial, and he was the first victim. He spent 72 days in the military police, where he taught for 10 years, by the way, as a primary teacher. He was there for 72 days without seeing his family. And one time, Mama Mbabazi was the prime minister by the time we entered the parliament. He brought the Public Order Management Act, and still he was the first victim when he was arrested by the late Kawesi going to Jinja. And I am told the Kahindo Tafe said, why did the Kawesi behave like that? He had to bango Amabaz on the pickup like others. Why did he make him sit and move? What we are saying, and what we want to tell, I want to tell the third major is, he knows the processes as someone who has gone through law school. They are what we call summons, criminal summons. Until you deny them and you refuse to respect summons, then other methods of arrest can occur. But here we are, you are abducting people with no cause, with no offense. And you are keeping them in ungazetted areas for more than 48 hours, which are mandated by law. Then you take them to court, you fail to adduce evidence against them. We are in Masaka for the case of Chivumbi. You know him, still the head of our president, but they have failed to produce evidence. And the challenge still goes to the prosecutors, the DPP. Because why is Madame Abodo suffering now? And she's having the worst nightmares in that office, because they are getting cases which are being trumped against the politicians that are not there, and producing evidence against them is very difficult. Recently we had a case in Kawempe. I was there, I was the lawyer in the case. I represented one of our councillors in Kawempe, one of magistrate courts. And the prosecutor, we asked him for a charge sheet. He gave us a letter from Chibuli. They had written to them that you don't have any evidence on these people. Kindly give us the names of those people, bring them to incriminate this one. And she gave it us as a charge sheet. I took photocopy of that thing immediately. I screenshot it, and the lady was complaining that you have sent documents from her in the court. But with no evidence. I can read that document verbatim here. So what are we saying? Him as a retired soldier, somebody who spent time in the bush, fought to bring back Uganda to sanity as they claimed by then, as of then. Here you are. What you are saying Amin was doing, what Obote was doing, is exactly what you are doing after 40 years in the office.
Honorable.
And that one cannot be acceptable. We can as well, when you talk about CMI, yes, it has its roles, but is it supposed to go on civilians and politicians? When you want to arrest Sewung, one of the first roles, you have to let the Speaker of Parliament. That's the procedure.
Because you're an MP.
Yes, you summon me, I will appear. You are saying I have guns. I am saying I have no guns. You are afraid to produce evidence. But the day you abduct me, you don't inform my family. My wife is not aware. The phone is taken away from me. And you are keeping me in a drone and torturing me within the same vehicle with the people you are using who are not fully identifiable, even to the extent of hiding your face as you arrest me. Why are you arresting Eddie Mutwe, hiding your face? This man was coming from a function.
All right, take us. So, there's something I need to allow the audience to understand. Eddie, not Eddie, this is Eddie Mutwe. Chairman Njanzi,
yes,
popularly called Chairman Njanzi, was arrested and then he was later released. And this is a scenario I really want to capture very intimately. When somebody has been abducted or disappeared, and then they are released, dropped somewhere, when you interact with them, what do they share? What was the reason for their abduction? What were they told is their crime? Are there charge sheets that are presented after they've been dropped somewhere that the case is taken on?
Let me give you scenarios of the Kawempe arrest first of all, and then come to Nyanza. We had people like members of parliament. We had the Warukaga, you know him, the mayor of Warukaga is the mayor of Chengera. He was abducted during the keeping of our votes. Those who arrested him said within the drone that, why do you sing Kawakazi songs? Those songs are giving you problems. But this man is a composer. He's praising, he's a king. Then you play for him songs, you say, this song was not good for us. Why do you go for that kind of level? Then when you talk to members of parliament, they are beaten because they are nationality platform. You see, when you cause Nyanza again, he's taken, he's mistreated, he has been tortured. What other interest do you have? You get him from Kawempe, from his home, then you drop him in Mukono. What else do you want to do? Because first of all, the people who have arrested you are not identifiable, but they have guns. The number plates of the vehicles are not seen, but they are the regular vehicles that are seen everywhere. So it is now the duty of the state. Because do you want to allow, I want to find out from Major, do you want to accept that your government is in very good comfort with people who are having guns, who are arresting people, but they know they have arrested them, they have released them, that they are within the country with guns which are within their possession, but are not legitimately licensed on them to carry out that job?
Let's allow Major use 2 minutes to wrap this up, respond to that particular question by the Honorable, and I'll be out of here for the Kickstarter.
First of all, you ask a question as to what do the released people say? I think the released people should be fair enough also to tell their story. For example, when these people are arrested, they are preferred a charge. Under whatever organization, even in CMI, because CMI has courts, is given a bond. So these people should be honest enough to say, I was taken, I was charged, I was given a bond, and this is what I was told. But this is not what comes out in the public. And that is what they say. Because for you to be released from such a government institution, there's clear line. But now that is the silent part which doesn't come. Now about the guns, institutional framework is there for security agencies. Only that the practicalities that I have mentioned, the challenges of practicalities of time, the workload, the infancy of the investigation makes things surrounded and people misinterpret it.
All right. What I do gather is it's a very complicated process, but I do hope that at the end of the day, the fundamental rights of every Ugandan to be told why they're being arrested, and most importantly, information be diverged to their loved ones is important. That will do it for the Kickstarter. We've been speaking to retired Major Paula Awich, Director External Affairs at the National Resistance Movement, as well as MP Joseph Sewungu from Kalungu West and member of the National Unity Platform.
The Shadow Minister for Education.
Shadow Minister for Education, no doubt. Sorry for missing out that. All right. Morning at NTV does continue after this break.